Hey guys, so if you are anything like me, you have probably been playing a ton of Elden Ring, and I've probably been playing it a little bit too much, but by playing it so much, I have been able to find a lot of little hidden secrets that a lot of people probably haven't found yet in the game. And this is a game that is chocked full of stuff, so I'm probably just like at the tip of the iceberg. But let's go ahead and jump right into this because there is a lot to cover. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the boss in Elden Ring, Renala. And a lot of you, if you play Dark Souls 3, you're probably going to realize that the boss fight is really similar to the Deacons of the Deep, but it may be more similar than you thought. So apparently in Dark Souls 3, there was actually supposed to be a second phase to the Deacons of the Deep fight that we just never saw. And from leaks, we know that the character was very similar to Renala, it just looked like one of the Deacons. And a lot of the attacks that the Deacon boss would have used are the same ones that Renala uses in her second phase. So basically, Renala's second phase, where she's shooting her magic and she's in that like water area, that's a scrapped second phase from the Deacons of the Deep fight. That's pretty cool, but it's not the only tie that this game has to Dark Souls 3, which may suggest that they're a little bit more closely related than we might have thought. So number 4 is going to talk about how High Lord Wolnir from Dark Souls 3 could possibly be a secret final boss, or at least some like really powerful entity in the Elden Ring universe. And High Lord Wolnir, he's like the hardest boss in Dark Souls, so he was harder than Nameless King. Like it took me like hours to finally beat him. So it would make sense that he would be a powerful entity in this Elden Ring universe. So when you fight Wolnir, he has these rings on his hands where if you break them, then he loses a lot of his power and becomes easier to fight. And when you fight the Fire Giant in Elden Ring, he has a similar thing. He has a ring around his leg that when you break it, he gets a lot weaker. Also, when you break this ring on the Fire Giant, he stays on the ground and he can't really walk anymore, so he's kind of like clawing around on the ground. Wolnir does the same thing. Wolnir can't stand, he just kind of drags himself on the ground like... And it would make sense, since the game is called Elden Ring, it probably would have a lot to do with the rings, and if they're wearing the same ring, that's gotta be something, right? But Wolnir's rings are stronger than the Fire Giant's. I mean, his are glowing yellow, so it wouldn't be that far-fetched to think that Wolnir might be something powerful. So the third thing we've got is Scarlet Rot. Now, Scarlet Rot is basically like poison, but it's just even worse. But I bet you didn't know that Scarlet Rot is actually a reference to the book The Scarlet Letter. One of the developers of the game is actually related to Nathaniel Hawthorne, who is the author of The Scarlet Letter. And in the game, the Scarlet Rot works very similarly to how the Scarlet Letter works in the book. In the book, if you have the Scarlet Letter, you're basically an outcast from society. And in the game, it's kind of the same way. In one of the quests, you meet Millicent, who has Scarlet Rot, and she's just all alone in this church, completely abandoned. She's been outcast. And it's also very symbolic of how you are as a Tarnished. As a Tarnished, you are outcast from society. I mean, just look at the Dung Eater. I mean, he's evil. And the Scarlet Letter was supposed to represent people who are evil and disobeying God. And we'll get into something with the Dung Eater a little bit later. So the next thing is kind of a crazy reference that you wouldn't expect. So there's a random church you can find which has Muriel, the pastor of Vowels, and he's this like giant pope turtle thing. He's wearing the Pope's hat, which is very similar to a crown. I bet you wouldn't think that this is a reference to Billie Eilish's You Should See Me in a Crown. However, if you listen closely to the ambient music that plays, you can actually hear the instrumental version of that song woven into the music.
Is there something you needed? You are free to show yourself around. I would serve as your guide, only my legs aren't what they used to be. If you find anything...
I think that was just crazy. So the final thing that we're going to be talking about is the Dung Eater, the loathsome Dung Eater. What the heck is he doing in this game? Well, I bet you'd be surprised to find out that the Dung Eater is actually you. Now, I know he says the thing where he's like, you are the Dung Eater, whatever, but he means it literally. And this one, it was crazy hard to find, but basically, you're the Dung Eater because you're shit at the game.